Hi, welcome everyone to our first show of our new talk show, Downright Capable, Changing the Way Others View Down Syndrome. And on today's show, we thought it would be most appropriate to talk to you guys about back to school. For majority of you, you may have already gone back to school like my son did yesterday, or maybe you're going back to school after the Labor Day weekend. But we wanted to share with you our topics to help you prepare for the start of school. So these are the 4 topics that we're going to be talking to you all about today. Changing the mindset, getting to know my child first, creating independence, and classroom environment. And I would like to suggest that you stay with us for the next half hour to the end of the show, because we have some really great resources that we wanted to share with all of you. So welcome to our viewers. If you're watching on the replay, welcome. You still have the ability to comment and share this show with others even after the show is over. So before I start, let me introduce you to myself. My name is Marla Murasko. I am an award-winning Down syndrome advocate, a speaker and author, and the mom of an awesome 12-year-old boy, Jacob, who just so happens to rock the extra chromosome. And now I am excited to introduce to you my co-host, Brian Herndon. Brian, welcome to the show. Hi, Brian. Brian, can you hear me? Oh, I think I just lost Brian. All right, let me see if I can get Brian back on.
Marla, are you there?
I am. Are you there?
You know, first show we lost the internet connection, so I was gone for a moment.
Oh, okay. Well, welcome back. So
Yes.
I just introduced everybody to our show.
Awesome.
And Downright Capable, Changing the Way Others View Down Syndrome. I just let everybody know what our topics are going to be today,
Awesome.
and I introduced myself. So Brian, welcome. Take a moment to introduce yourself.
All right. Well, thank you, Marla. I'm sorry about that, everyone. You know, my name is Brian Herndon, and I am a professor of teacher education. I've been in public school for 20 plus years, and during that time, I've been a principal and a teacher. Director of an early childhood special education program. And over the course of that time as an administrator, I had the opportunity to serve as an LEA for literally hundreds of IEP meetings. And as a classroom teacher, I've been in dozens more. I'm also the parent to 4 amazing children, one of which rocks an extra.
Oh, okay. Well, welcome back. Sorry. Okay, Brian. So thank you.
Yeah, and kind of our purpose, you know, Marla and I have been talking. We've been talking via Facebook. She lives in Massachusetts. I live in Arkansas. So we're using technology to connect, but we both have a passion for helping other people, specifically families with Down syndrome. We both have children with Down syndrome, and we've experienced our own struggles along the way. And we feel that we have a lot to offer in terms of knowledge and experience. And we want to build a show that we feel that addresses topics that are important to you and that offer support and encouragement to you. Our goal is to focus on the capabilities of people with Down syndrome, not their disabilities.
Great. So I'm trying to look at our first topic here. Okay.
Yeah. So changing the mindset. Mm-hmm. So one of the things, so Marla mentioned we're going to talk about changing the mindset. And I think this is very important for us as family members, as school professionals, as we start the school year. And I think it starts with questions like, how can we most effectively educate the child? How can we be sure that he or she is valued and a valuable member of the school community? And what creative ways or ideas can we use to help him or her maintain dignity and support behavior effectively? You notice those questions did not focus on programming. It didn't focus on which classroom is this child going to be in. It didn't focus on who is going to work with the child. They focused on their abilities and what they could do. And there was the assumption that they were already a part of the community. And I think that when we start there, we start to change our focus from what they can't do to what they can do. And so I want you as parents, as educators, whoever's watching this, to really just throw out the window everything you know about Down syndrome and think about your own child, and think about the child that maybe you're working with, and think about what they can do and presume competence with them. This is something that I think is very important. And I think Marla and I both agree that when we presume competence with our children, they're going to do a whole lot more than we ever imagined possible. And when we focus on them as a valued and valuable member of the community, I think we're going to look through we're going to look at the child more through the eyes of ability and not the eyes of disability. So when we presume competence, I think that changes our mindset. When we assume that they're already a part of the community, I think it changes our mindset. And to me, it's about dignity and respect. So here's a little personal example. My son, Nate, has Down syndrome. He's 10 years old. And we have moved to a new state, a new community, a new school. And his teacher had asked me if he needed help going to the bathroom or if he needed a buddy. And I said, you know what? He doesn't. Let's go ahead and presume competence with him and allow him to go. And if he has problems, we can jump in and help at that point. And as far as I know, it's been very successful so far. So I think that's just one easy way to begin the school year, is to encourage people to presume that competence with people.
I agree totally, Brian. Thank you for that. So our next topic is getting to know my child first. And like Brian said, we need to presume competence and get to know our child. So as we begin the start of the school, and especially for myself and like Brian as well, we are actually going to be starting a new school here in our town. And so basically we have all new players to the team. And so it's nice to get to know the child first. Despite what you see on paper, it's really good to get to know the child. So one of our suggestions is that if you have the ability to schedule an IEP meeting at the beginning of the school year with all of the team members, and hopefully if your child can take part in that conversation, they then can now express their desires and their dreams and aspirations and what they would like to get from the school year. But if you don't have the ability to do that, I wanted to share with you a really great resource. And just so that you know, we will be sharing our resources at the end of this show. But this is kind of what I call the All About Me page. And if you haven't done it yet, I would suggest that you take a look at this example and see if it works for you. Let me just show you what I created for my son, and it might be backwards, and I apologize.
No, it's fine, Marla.
Thanks, Brian. So basically what it's talking about, it's got your parent's vision statement here. It talks about, what works, what works for him, what didn't work, his strengths, what he's working on, and what he likes. And I think what I liked about this example that I got from Courtney Hansen from Inclusion Evolution is that it's bulleted, it's precise, it's not very wordy, and truthfully, it's a really quick snapshot of your child. And again, I created this for my son, and I sent it to school, and I emailed it to his teachers and asked that they share that with everybody. Because again, I think it is important that we all get to know who it is that you're going to be working with, despite what information you may see on progress reports. Get to know the child so that you can actually start tailoring your lessons to maybe what the child's strengths are or what they like. So again, this is from Courtney Hansen from Inclusion Evolution, and I will share that resource with you at the end. The next thing that I wanted to...
Hey, Marla.
Yeah.
Can I jump in? I just want to piggyback
Absolutely.
that. I also think, as an educator and as a parent, when you as a parent take time in the privacy of your home to kind of go through that stuff with your spouse or significant other, if you have one, it allows you that quiet time to think through that. Because when you get into that IEP meeting, I don't know if you're like me, Marla, but I get nervous.
Oh, absolutely.
I tend to forget what I really wanted to say. Or I might get a little frustrated and not say the things I did want to say. And so having that right there always is that resource to go back and say, hey, let's come back to this and make sure that we're looking at this, because I think sometimes we can get lost in that IEP meeting with our nerves.
And I think, Brian, you made actually two good points there. And that's kind of the premise to this whole talk show, is that we're changing the mindset. So, getting to know the child is extremely important, and if the parents take the time to write down, the strengths and what they're working on. And I did not do that on my last All About Me page. And so that's why I liked this example, was because I talked about what it is that he's working on right now. Even though that's on the IEP, it was still in front of everybody who should get that paper, who's working with your child, so that they know how, what the child's working on and how to tailor maybe their questions or the lessons to include that child in the conversation. And the other thing is, now we're talking, next topic is creating independence. And what I wanted to share with you there is, again, this mindset, creating this mindset that, inclusion revolution. Sorry. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. That was my bad. Sorry, Courtney. Yes, it's inclusion revolution. And thank you, Brian. I will provide you that website at the end on our resource page. So again, back to creating independence, it's again about the mindset of you can do this, or what I like to say to my son is, you got this. I think all of us want to create some level of independence for our children. And, that may be different for all of us. But what I think is important is that you share that with the school so that they understand, what it is that you want from your child, and maybe what it is that you were working on at home over the summer. So let me share an example with you that my son actually went to his first sleepaway camp this summer for 1 week. And, we weren't sure what he was going to do. And honestly, my husband and I had bets that the camp was going to call us by Wednesday and let us know that this isn't working for him. Maybe he's not ready for camp. And guess what? My son proved us wrong. And it was a huge accomplishment for him because, again, he was independent. He was given the opportunity to gain responsibility for making his bed. And again, maybe you guys have this at home, but making his bed and keeping his cabin area clean and, following the schedule of the camp. Yes, there was support there, but it was way on the sideline. So he was able to make camp his own. Without people telling him what to do and how to do it. And again, for us, that was a really big level of independence for him. And I think, again, that is something that we are going to be sharing with the school, because my son is in 6th grade. And as we're moving forward, I want them to know that, because I want them to now start backing off him a little bit and let him figuring things out himself and gaining that confidence that he can do it. I say to him every morning before he leaves, you got this, buddy. Building up that confidence and that independence, and, letting him look towards his peers as peer buddies to help him throughout the day, whether it's in the classroom or, getting to gym or the lunchroom. But, we have to share what expectations we want of our child moving forward so that the school knows what level of independence that we want. And that's something that I'm going to be sharing with the school, because I think it's important.
And Marla, you bring up a great point, because I think that ties really nicely into the presuming competence as well, because your son Jacob, you had to presume competence. He had to make his bed. He had to be a regular camper. And of course there was support there if he wasn't able to do it, but you had to presume competence, and he stepped up to the plate, and it's awesome to,
like I said, he proved us wrong, which is good. I like that.
Proved wrong, right?
I'd love to be proved wrong, so I was very proud of him.
Absolutely. And you should be. Absolutely. Another thing I just want to talk about is just the classroom environment. I was a classroom teacher for 11 of my years in public education, and that classroom environment is so important to the success, really, of every child in that classroom. And so I think about my own son who has Down syndrome, and I know, Marla, you think about this too. Do they feel like they're a valuable and valued member of that classroom? Right. And I think that's important for us to think about. One of the things I was thinking about just in preparation for this broadcast today was just looking at something called implicit bias. And my wife actually shared a video on Facebook the other day about this, and I hadn't really done a lot of thinking about it, but I really started thinking about it. And before we had a child with Down syndrome, I didn't have a lot of experience with Down syndrome, or really disabilities for that matter. Right. And the experience that I had, I think I had a lot of bias that went with that. I think when I saw them at the store or whatever, I was kind of afraid to be around them or go around them. And I kind of probably shied away from people with disabilities because it made me nervous.
Right.
And that was my own implicit.
You don't know, you're
scared. Absolutely. You don't know. And so I think I shied away from it because I had my own biases of what people with disabilities would be. And I think that when we start to look at that, and, classroom teachers, we all have to look at how do we see someone with disabilities, specifically Down syndrome. And I think that, moving to a new community, new state, new school district, kind of a new life for us right now. I knew that first IEP meeting, it would be very important for my son to have a voice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because like you said, Marla, they're going to see my son on paper, and they're going to see in blaring letters Down syndrome.
Absolutely.
And they're going to have a preconceived notion about that. It's human nature. And I don't fault anybody for that. It's human nature. We all do it. And so I wanted to be able to kind of challenge their thinking on Down syndrome a little bit. And so I invited my son to be a part of that IEP meeting. And what we did in that 10 minutes that he was there, I think really changed the trajectory of his schooling here in Arkansas, because he shared what he did this summer. And he's a very verbal child, and he talked their ears off. And he had some great words to say. Yeah, he did. It was awesome. And he talked so eloquently and so beautifully, and he was pretty intelligible. There were only a few times that people had trouble understanding him, and he's that kid. He's going to talk around it until you understand.
Right.
But as the meeting, after he left the meeting and we started to talk, everyone at the table, you could just tell they were kind of shocked, because they were prepared for probably, something a little different. Maybe they had some stereotypes or biases that, that they had, of Down syndrome. And we changed his goals. We made his goals much more challenging. We talked about him being in the classroom most of the day. We really kind of did away with that idea of a functional curriculum. And said, he needs to be able to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. And like you, Marla, we shared, kind of our vision for our son, of what we want to see in 25 years. And it's not a separate life. I think self-contained classrooms and segregated settings create separate lives. And we want our son to be a part of community and society as much as possible. And so that is super important to us as parents. And I know it's important to you, Marla, and I'm sure it's important to everyone else who's watching right now, that they want their children to be a part of community. They want them to be involved and be, contributing members, to the degree that they can. And if we start at such a young age and isolate them, I think we set the wrong message.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And I just looked up here at my show notes here, and I wanted to say something else, that if we operate from the assumption that there's this thing called the least dangerous assumption. So if we go with a certain idea and it's the least dangerous assumption and it's proven false, then it's the least harmful to the child.
Right.
And so being in the classroom or being around peers, most of the time is the least dangerous assumption, because isolation and segregation is the most dangerous assumption. And there's no community there, so yeah, I would encourage you, if your child is verbal, or even if they're not verbal, to get them to share at that IEP meeting, and hopefully begin to, take down the bricks of what we might view Down syndrome to be.
Yeah, and great points, Brian. And, like you said, I mean, we have to give them a voice.
Absolutely.
Because, again, inclusion is not a setting or a place,
Right.
And
Right.
so we need to make this an inclusive environment, and, whether it's outside in the community or at school.
Absolutely.
Everybody, obviously we talk about respect, but, we have to also get to know each other too. And I think that's what the whole premise of this show was, is to get to know the child and, get everybody on the same page, if you will, of, who they're going to be educating, because I think sometimes it gets lost when we're in the IEP meetings, because, the parents are saying, we want this and we want this. But like you said, Brian, at the end of the day, it's really about our children and what it's going to, this is the building blocks for what is going to help them for the future, what it looks like 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. And I think that's, so, like, to your point, it gets lost at IEP meetings. And, you mentioned that, and I do want to bring one more point, is that the best thing that you can do for yourself when you go into the IEP meetings is really to have your talking points laid out right in front of you, whether, and I even said this to Brian when we first started talking about this, is, the school is going to start off with their agenda.
Yep.
And, that's, say, no, like, let me introduce myself and introduce my child, because this meeting is about this child. And if we're going to just start off with this agenda, these bullet notes of IEPs and progress, you've totally missed the whole topic of this child.
Yeah, we're talking about people,
right.
And I love that, you put a face with a name, you put, you bring that human element into it. And I think we sometimes forget that, that it's very important. Yes, we have business to take care of, but the business is a person.
Absolutely.
And we need to start with that person. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and again, remember, everybody, this is an individual education plan. Individual means it's about this child. So, let's start it off. Let's start the year off on the right foot. Get to know the child first, what kind of your expectations are, these lofty expectations of what you expect of this child. And, when I talked about independence, that's really important for us. And, like I said, I wanted to share that with the school because I wanted to build off of that. Absolutely. Despite what you see on paper, this is what my child is doing at home. Yep. And I think that's important information to share with the school. It is.
Yeah. And I think, and maybe we're belaboring the point, but just to bring it back to, when you write down those talking points, you are going to make sure that you talk about those things in that meeting. Because like I said, when you go to that back to school IEP meeting, you're going to be nervous. You have this goal in mind for your child. And, someone in the IEP meeting says something that comes out of left field and it throws you off. Yeah. Go back to those talking points, go back to that vision for your child. And I think, Marla, you're going to share some IEP resources, creating that vision for your child and always asking that question, what are we doing now that's going to help us get to that vision, for our child in the future?
Absolutely.
All of that leads up to, we're looking at creating a valuable member of society.
Right. And that's what, again, the premise of this whole talk show is changing the mindset, presuming competence, and, how can we provide this child with the right supports to make them successful in whatever they're going to do after, they graduate or whatever from high school, as they move on to maybe it's post-secondary, you know, as they transition into the later years.
Yep.
You know, this is the critical time for us. And like I said, my son is in 6th grade, so we are really right at that cusp of transitioning into that 14 year and above. So it's really important to stay focused when you're in these meetings, and to, again, you know, be honest with them and share what it is that you want from your child. Like Brian said, if your child can't do that, make sure you do it for them, because they have a voice and they need to be respected.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we are getting to the end of our show, and I wanted to, again, thank all of you who are on here. And like Brian mentioned, at the end of the show, I'm going to be posting in our Facebook page the resources that we have for all of you. They're really good resources. We went through a couple different, you know, websites and Facebook groups and asked some of our expert friends for some information. And we're really excited to share that with you, because we really know that it's going to help you and your child to have a successful year. So we're going to be posting that under files in the Facebook page. And then Brian, I know we're going to be talking about future shows.
We are, absolutely. And, you know, I also want to say thank you to everyone who was able to join us today. And if you're watching this on a replay, you know, we're grateful that you're here. We hope that this is a benefit to you. And Marla and I want to continue this. And so we're planning to have another show on September 21st at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Central Time. So mark your calendar for that. We'll post it on Facebook just like we're doing right now. And we'll have, you know, another show. And our goal is to, you know, just to do things that are relevant for you and interesting, and things that, you know, are about presuming competence and looking at the capabilities, not the disabilities.
Great. Yeah. And so I wanted to share this comment from Phil. Phil, I appreciate you being here. Thank you. This was our first show. We were a tad bit nervous, but you know, we're figuring it out as we go. So yes, we are excited for our future shows. And if there is anything that any of you would like for us to talk about, if there's any speakers that you want us to bring on, please let us know on our Facebook page, which is Downright Capable Show. You can find that on Facebook, and let us know. And let us know for future shows what you'd like us to talk about. But we appreciate you all being here. And again, if you're watching on the replay, let us know in the comments. Just type replay and let us know. And actually, what would be really fun is if you guys let us know where you're tuning in from. What state are you watching from? Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be really fun. We're here in Massachusetts, so, you know, Brian, where are you again? I forgot.
We're in Arkansas.
Arkansas, I was going to say that. But yeah, so let us know where you're tuning in from. I think it's going to be nice, and it's going to be a nice network for us to, a community for us to start building off of and supporting one another. Absolutely.
So, well, Marla, it's been a pleasure, and I know we'll be talking in the interim, but you know, to the rest of you, we look forward to seeing you here in a few weeks.
Yep. So September 21st, everyone. And if you haven't, make sure you click to receive the notifications on our Facebook page so that you can stay up to date on our shows for the future. So everyone, have an awesome, successful school year. And we look forward to seeing you on September 21st. And Brian, thank you so much. And thank you, everyone. Have a good Labor Day weekend.
All right.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye.